All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Renatus J.A.M. My name is Jay Stark, and joining me as always is my favorite co-host,
Mr. Matt Snyder.
Mr. Matt Snyder. Dude, you love that lower third, don't you?
It's pretty cool.
You love it.
Yeah, I'm digging it.
It's your favorite.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that we were going to have it, and then we did, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just popped up.
So are we live on Facebook right now, Mr. James?
You sure are.
Sweet. Okay, so here's what we're going to do today. I want to do a little exercise here with everyone. And hang on, I really like pulling up our Facebook feed, so that way if anybody's dropping in comments or anything, we can respond back to them really quickly. So Mr. Hiller is here. Welcome from the great state of Ohio.
Oh, and Mr. Hiller, I need to get back to you. I did talk to Jay. And I need to. It's been meetings after. Anyways, I'll get back to you.
No. See,
we'll talk after this.
He was kicking in his office. He actually called me and said, "Jay, guess what? I'm not going to respond to Mr. Hiller."
Actually, I was driving, and and I was like, "Crap, I gotta call Jay."
All right, so here's what I want to do today. We're going to mix it up a little bit. It's going to be a little bit of a different call. Is that okay with you, Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Wonderful.
It's more than okay. I love it.
Right on. So. We had an opportunity yesterday to attend a funeral together, which it's always a cool experience when you go to a funeral that is a celebration of someone's life, right?
Yeah.
It was not tragic. She was well into her 80s, and it was just a celebration of her life. And Matt and I were talking about this. And I brought up the Japanese principle of Bushido. And I said, actually in Stoicism with Marcus Aurelius, he actually called it memento mori. And basically both concepts are very similar, right? To live as if you are dying, right?
Yeah.
The idea that any moment could be your last moment, so be present all the time.
Yeah.
And I love that idea because I value very much the idea of being 100% present with people.
Yeah.
And we had talked about a few of the situations in our life that were very memorable because they were so shocking that they pulled you 100% present. And then we talked about some of our own hobbies and how those pull us into being 100% present.
Yeah. When I'm riding like a single track trail in the mountains with a cliff on one side on my dirt bike, you're 100% focused on what you're doing, because if you mess up, you literally could potentially die. It's serious. And so you
have a very long time to say goodbye.
yeah.
So anyway, Matt brought up this really interesting idea, and I wanted to share that with everybody today. So, we don't have a whole lot of new announcements, and unfortunately our featured guest couldn't be with us today, so it's just going to be the two of us talking.
Yeah.
But it's this really cool exercise, and I wanted to share it with everybody, and if you feel so inspired to try it, give it a try. But here it is. So as we were talking about being present and being in the moment, we're talking about having come from a funeral, what a eulogy sounded like. Matt said that he actually had an opportunity to practice writing an obituary. And so
it's taking a personal moral inventory.
Right.
And when you take a hard look at yourself, a honest hard look like that.
Right.
Yeah, you got to write pretend you got to write an obituary.
So you got to write a brutally honest obituary about yourself today as your life currently is. And then you write a second obituary of what you want your life to be. What do you want people to say about you when you die? And then you take a difference between those two obituaries, and that's where you can start to understand where you can make progress in your life, what areas of your life that you need to work on, and how you can start to show up differently so that you can become the kind of person that you hope one day people will remember you as. And I sat there and I thought about it, and I thought about my own life, and I thought about, what people might say about me today versus what I want them to say about me when I do pass. And it gave me an opportunity to really be, honest with myself and to say, there are some areas where I can do much, much better. I love the idea of being able to inspire, serve, help people, and be very honest with them in a loving, kind way, right? One of the things that I have always despised about Simon Cowell, everybody says that he's so honest. Well, there's a difference between being honest and being hurtfully critical, right?
Yeah.
I can be honest and I can be kind at the same time.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, people forget that from time to time. They forget that they can be honest and be kind. And that was one of the things that I thought about. I want to be honest and I want to be kind. I want to serve and support people. I want to be inspirational in the way that I live my life so that it inspires other people to elevate their life as well, so that they can do more and be more good in the world.
Yeah.
And that's what I really want to do. And I understand that I got a lot of things going for me in my life, and so I hope that I can become that person when I die, that people will reflect back on my life and say, there's a life dedicated as an inspirational leader.
Yeah.
That's what I really hope for.
Keep striving. You keep working towards it, man.
Yeah.
And you got to sometimes do this over and over.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Where am I really at? Good, bad, and otherwise.
Right.
You know, you want to write it all down.
I love that. And I mean, I used to talk about that Bill Gates used to have this practice with his board where he would say, okay, guys, I want you to imagine the craziest, the biggest, the baddest that Microsoft can become. And they would all write down these scenarios where Microsoft took over the world or whatever. They said, great, if we're going to get there in 5 years, where do we need to be in 4 years? Where do we need to be in 3, 2, 1? Where do we need to be tomorrow?
Yeah.
And I love that idea of reverse engineering the success that we want to create in our lives. And I feel like that's what this obituary practice really gives you an opportunity to do, is to reverse engineer. Look at the success you want to create. Look at the way that you want to be remembered. Reverse engineer that into your life today so that you can say, here are the areas that I need to improve on.
Yeah.
Here's where I can do a little bit better.
You know, when I like that Bill Gates thing, when I was calling on online ads, I mean, this was like tough marketing, right? But I had a 1% close ratio, meaning 1% of the people I talked to purchased. If I talked to 100 people,
one person,
or if I should say if I called 100 people,
gotcha,
I would sell one.
Gotcha. So you may have had like a 50% pickup ratio, and then
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So I knew for every 100 leads that I called, though, I'd get one, and so every 1,000 it would be 10. And I worked it backwards, and I really looked at it that way, and so I started making those calls with that thought that, hey, you know what? I might call 60 people this afternoon.
Yeah.
And I might get all no's because on the 40 tomorrow or whatever, right? The yes is lying there. It's in tomorrow. And so, but you just, I don't know. It was a good way to keep going.
Yeah.
When you're getting no, I'm not interested, whatever it is. And so, yeah.
There's a little bit of a difference between a goal and a principle. I remembered the word. It's principle.
Yes.
So Woody Woodward taught me this one time. He said, Jay, I really hate when people talk about goals, and I'd rather talk about principles and how we can elevate our principle compass and thereby create the life we're looking to create.
Yeah.
And he talked about how he doesn't have to make a goal to not do cocaine today.
Yeah.
It's just a part of his principles, his moral code. He won't do cocaine.
Right.
And so rather than us creating a goal that we have to think about, and it uses all of our self-mastery, self-discipline, energy, our muscle, and we get worn out thinking about it and everything else.
Yeah.
He said instead of it being a goal that we work toward, it becomes a principle in our life.
Yeah.
And we have to boil it down to where it's a principle, something that is not just something we can do every day, but something we can do without needing to think about it, so that it becomes second nature to us.
Good way to put it, because successful people have principles that they operate by.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And this is actually a perfect segue into the next thing that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
So every single week you prepare a couple of stories that we have titled Good Vibrations, where you talk about a couple of people that have made a difference in their own lives in the world by setting an inspiration or achieving something that is inspirational in their lives.
Yes. And I typically, so I prepare this, story of somebody's life, and then I'll give it typically it's on a private call. It's just to kind of put some good vibration, good energy, whatever, good vibe out in there. And so we call it Good Vibrations, but I will just highlight somebody's life, basically, that has done something great and been successful. Particularly with these two that I've got here, I would say the fact that they didn't quit is really the overarching, moral of the story here, if you will. So
I love these two stories.
Yep.
And one you will have heard of this person. The other one you may not have heard of. And that's one of the things that I love is that, that's funny. What are some of the things in your future obituary that's not in your current one? And what specifically do you have to achieve to get there? So, okay.
I would say, when I did this, because that wouldn't be now. I haven't done it now. I should do it, but I haven't.
Right.
When I did this, showing up for people, the loved ones in my life, that was one big one for me.
Yeah.
There were a few.
One of mine is I want to be remembered as the guy who I guess kind of similar to showing up. In my own words, though, it was the doer, the guy that's doing something.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of time where I'm sitting, whether it's watching my kids' game or it's at a practice, because for whatever reason in Utah, parents have to stay at every freaking practice. Anyway, but I want to be a doer. I want to be a guy who doesn't sit idly by. I don't want to allow time to slip past me and then look back and go, oh man, I could have been progressing my mind at that time. So I'm really engaged right now in filling my mind with additional information, additional inspiration, so that I can then share that with other people.
Just thinking about it a little bit. Who asked this question, first of all?
Alvin Lamb did.
Alvin, I love you, man. I would say right now, if I were to do this, it would be not missing the opportunities to help somebody. I feel like there have been too many opportunities that I look back and I go, crap, I missed that opportunity to help this person in this situation, and I should have been more tapped into that.
One more for me was to tell people how I feel about them more often.
I like that. That's
because
a good one.
There's you never know when the last conversation you've had is the last conversation you will have with somebody.
Yeah, it's true.
You never know exactly when that. And so I've become much more present to telling people how I feel about them. Especially people that I truly love and care about.
Yeah. So
that they know, hey, I love you and have a great day. I don't even know. It started funny enough with my nephews and nieces who know that I love them, but I don't necessarily say that to them every time I see them. And so now I do this thing. Okay. We're getting into it. Alvin, this is your fault. This is for you, buddy.
The minutia.
Right. I am very touch.
Textile
love.
Or what's
touch
the term?
Is my love language.
Tactile.
Right?
What's
Tactile.
Is that the word?
Yeah, tactile is anyway. And so the other day, my wife, it was really funny. She and I were talking about something, and I was kind of flirting with her, teasing her, and she did this thing where we were sitting next to each other, and she just reached up and kind of playfully smacked me, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, "Do it again." And she said, "What?" I said, "Do it again." And she did it again, and it was that she was touching me that was meaningful to me. And so what I've started to do is I'll take my nephews and nieces, I'll give them a hug, and then I'll hold them just by their shoulders or something and say, I love you. Mm-hmm. Look them in their eyes and tell them, I love you. Yeah. Because I want them to feel everything that I got. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, Nicholas Hiller just posted this. He said, I just seen this on a post. We should tell people how we love them during birthdays the same way we share the love during their funerals. Amen to that, brother.
Yeah, I've heard
Amen
that
to that.
before. That thought of, we should tell people what we would say at their funeral. We should tell them while they're alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that kids don't ever realize is that at the same time that their parents are watching them grow up, they are watching their parents grow up.
100%.
And I feel that way with the Renatus community. The same time that we're here serving the Renatus community, you guys are watching us learn, grow, and get better as well.
Yep.
We're all trying to do this at the same time. And so one of the things that I love is I love the people that show up and contribute to the podcast, because I feel like it makes us better. It helps us to really sharpen our talents and our abilities to serve, help, and uplift anyone who wants to participate. So I appreciate you guys.
Yeah. I
So,
agree.
all right, let's get into these two stories that I know you've got prepared. Let's start with the humdinger.
The humdinger.
The humdinger.
Mr. Abraham Lincoln.
Honest Abe.
Old Honest Abe, that's right. Which I didn't even talk about. I mean, there's so much to cover with Abraham Lincoln. I struggled with this one, putting it together for a long time, and then I finally was just like, screw it, I'm putting it together. And I'm going to bullet point a lot of his life, because there's so much that's been documented. There's so much to his life. Anyways, a lot of lessons. So I missed a lot, if you will, but I did it.
You just selected.
I selected because, I can't go on for 8 pages on, single spaced on, on this call that we do this on. So so Abraham was born into poverty in 1809 in Kentucky, and he was faced with defeat throughout his whole life. He lost 8 elections and failed in his work life, either in business or holding a job, multiple times, and had a nervous breakdown that bedridden him for 6 months. So, I think we kind of think about, like, that actually surprised me, because I didn't think people back then had nervous breakdowns. I don't know why. I always just thought it was like a phenomenon of now.
Right.
Because of the way that we are now, like as a society and the anxiety rates. Nope. It happened then too. So he could have quit many times, but he didn't. And, because he didn't quit, he became one of the greatest U.S. presidents in history. And in 1816, Lincoln's father, Thomas, owned farmland in Hardin County, Kentucky. And, the family got pushed out of their land because people would move into Kentucky and then claim the land beforehand, like basically steal it, if you will, because the title to land wasn't like a great process back then. And so it was pretty easy to just like say, oh, well, that's my land over there, and manipulate some county recorder or something, I don't know, and get title to somebody else's land. And that happened a lot in Kentucky in the early 1800s. So it actually forced Abraham Lincoln's family to move. Thomas, Abraham's dad was okay with moving because he did not like slavery, and both because his church opposed it, but also because of he had to compete with it economically, and that was difficult as well. So it kind of made it an easy choice for them just to leave, because he wanted to get out anyways. They went over the river, they let's see, where did they go? I'm trying to remember now.
Was it Illinois?
Yes, it was Illinois. And so anyways, in 1818, though, so a couple of years after this, Abraham's mother died suddenly from milk poisoning, as they called it back then. But cows would eat plants that were poisonous, and the milk would be poisonous to you. That really affected him quite a bit, actually. He was young, relatively young, and it really, he's in teenage years, I think 15 or 16 at the time. He, kept living life and got a job. In 1831, he lost that job, and then he decided to run for the state legislature in Illinois, and that was in 1832. He lost that, and decided, hey, maybe I'll go to law school. Maybe that's my calling. And he couldn't get in. He couldn't get into law school. So the next year, 1833, he borrowed some money from a friend to begin a business, and by the end of that year, he was bankrupt. The sheriff seized all of his possessions, and he spent the next 17 years of his life paying that debt off. The next year after that, 1834, he ran for state legislation, but this time he won. And he started to feel like things were going his way. He was engaged to a woman at this time, and she actually died in early 1835. So this also profoundly affected him. I mean, he grieved hard. It affected him so much that he really started to deteriorate. And by that next year, 1836, he had the total nervous breakdown. He was bedridden for 6 months. And it really took him quite some time to get over this. By 1837, so a couple years later, he proposed marriage to another young woman, but was turned down. And
this does not sound like the Abraham Lincoln I know.
I know, right? 1838, the next year, he wanted to become the speaker of the state legislature. He lost that election.
How old is he at this point? 1838. What year was he born?
18, was it 03?
03.
1809.
09. So he's 29 years old in 1838.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So a couple of years later, he ran for Congress and lost again. Then 2 years after that, 1846 to be exact, he ran for Congress and won. He served his time, and then in 1849, he tried to go for the job of land officer in Kentucky and was rejected there. So then he ran for the state senate and lost. This poor guy just won't take no for an answer, and that's the point, right? Then he, in 1856, he lost the vice president nomination at his party's national convention. So he's, well, maybe vice president's not my thing. I'm going to go back to the Senate. He ran for Senate and lost after that. So, yeah, it's just like
this guy.
I know. And then in 1860, he decided to go for broke. Ran for president of the United States
at 51. Won. At 51 years old.
Yeah.
And won.
Yep. Isn't that crazy?
You know, this brings up one of my favorite Winston Churchill quotes.
Ooh, yeah.
And it's hang on.
There's like 3 or 4 that are phenomenal by Churchill.
Well, this one, yeah, he's got a punch.
He does have some great ones. While you're looking that up, I'm going to read the one that I've got from Abraham Lincoln.
All right, let's hear it.
Obviously, if he had given up at any point, he would not become president. He would not have been as integral as he was in freeing slaves, right? Like, it's amazing to think of how our nation's history might have changed if he had given up at any point along the way. But he says, "I am a slow walker, but I never walk backwards."
I love that. This is my one of my favorite Churchill quotes. He says, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts."
Yep.
And that kind of goes
just love that quote
right
so
along
much.
Along with that. In fact, there's another quote that Churchill has that says, "When you're going through hell, keep going.
Yeah.
Don't stop."
Yep.
And I honestly think that it was all of the defeats in his life that he overcame that allowed him to become the man who would lead the nation through Civil War and who, after the Civil War, could then unify the North and the South.
Yeah.
I think it was because he understood that being defeated once did not mean that he was a failure. It meant that he had to try differently.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Get up, man. I mean, yeah. How many times did could Abraham Lincoln have thought, maybe being a politician isn't for me? Right. So the next person that we're going to talk about is Paulo Coelho. Right. If you don't know who he is, I don't know.
Like you sneezed because you said his name.
Coelho.
Paulo Coelho. Coelho? Is that how you say that?
Yeah, I think so.
Paulo Coelho.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. So he was born in 1947 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He wanted to be a writer, right? So he wanted to write and author things, and that's kind of what he felt his calling in life was. And his parents, being devout Catholic, not that necessarily had much to do with it. They were just very rigid on, like, here's what you do in life. And they did not like the uncertainty of the profession of writing. And, it's a difficult profession.
Yeah, they're not wrong.
I mean, yeah, they're not. And so they really didn't want that for their son. He rebelled against his parents and his Jesuit school teachers, and at certain points contemplated suicide among his teenage years, right? His parents were so scared about his career choice that they actually had him committed to a psychiatric facility when he was 17 years old. He actually underwent electroshock therapy at that time, and he spent some time in psych wards a few times after that, actually, in his young adulthood. But later, he enrolled in law school and then dropped out to write music and plays and travel. And at this time, he started to experiment with drugs, and he found himself jailed and tortured in prison for political activism. He came out of that experience wanting to do something different. And in 1986, he made the 500-mile trek across Europe to the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela in Spain. And this is the end point for a very famous pilgrimage route that's followed by Christians, all the way going back to the Middle Ages. And this journey
through today, they still do it.
Yeah, through today. So still today. The journey inspired Paulo to renew his faith in Christianity and write his first published book called The Pilgrimage. He later went on to publish a second book called The Alchemist in 1988, so just 2 years later. And it explored similar searches for spiritual enlightenment and self-development. And the book barely sold any copies at all. And after a year, the publisher let it go out of print and canceled his contract with him. And so, Paulo actually, he just kind of shrugged that initial defeat off and made up his mind not to give in. It was a very difficult time for him, though, but he doubled down to pursue his vision, and he looked long and far to find another publisher that would publish him after this whole year-long failure, basically. And finally, he did find a publisher that would publish his book. And the second publishing of The Alchemist sold 3,000 copies. So that's it, right? And he thought that it was going to be a failure, so did the publisher. But sales kept slowly trickling in. And eventually he had made it to the 10,000 book mark, and then the 100,000 book mark, and then things really started to snowball after that. The word got out that this book is awesome, right? And The Alchemist became an enormous hit, selling more than 65 million copies, while it was on the New York Times bestseller list, which was for 315 weeks, which is like 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the world's most translated book by a living author. And, as of today, The Alchemist has actually sold 150 million books, and Paulo has sold over 320 million books in total, counting his other works. And, he's got a net worth of $500 million today, and he's married to his wife, Christina. And they married in 1980, and so he's been with the same woman through all of this, which also is impressive, because whenever we talk about people that have created success, sometimes they don't have spouses that go along with it, and so it's pretty frequent that I find, So I think that's pretty cool. I think that's a huge success in and of itself that he's been married to his wife since 1980.
Yep.
They spend half the year in Brazil and the other half in France now, and he's living out the end of his days. I believe he's in his 70s now. So
well, yeah, if he was 47, he'd be 75,
something like that. Yeah. So he's still doing interviews and stuff, and you can find him. And interesting man, but just wouldn't give up and followed his dream in life, and I find that really inspiring. So I've got a quote here. He says, "Remember that wherever your heart is, there you will find your treasure." I also have one more quote from him because I liked it, but it says, "When we love, we always strive to become better than we are. When we strive to become better than we are, everything around us becomes better too."
Man. Spell his last name for me.
Coelho.
Coelho. Coelho?
That's how you pronounce it.
So I've never actually read The Alchemist, but it sounds like I need to.
I haven't either. I know it sounds really quite interesting. So after I put this together, I was like, man, I need to get that on the list.
You know, it's really interesting that you and I have recently read the same book. We read The Obstacle is the Way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really interesting because the author of the book is actually an author that I don't like.
Why don't you like him, Jay?
He wrote a book called Trust Me, I'm Lying. And he says in the very first chapter of the book, he says, by the end of the book, you will hate me.
And he was right.
Oh, man, he was right. I hated him. I absolutely hated him. But it was because he pointed out the way that the media manipulates or how to manipulate media, basically. And he was talking about it from an advertising perspective, but he also then brought in politics and different things. But it was really interesting. Any book, even if I hate it, that inspires me to see the world differently is a good book, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Even if I hate it. And I hated this book.
I would say that about conversations that I've had with people when, like I disagree with them.
Right.
But yet I usually go into that stuff with a pretty open mind.
Right.
So they change the way you perceive something, or at least open your mind to and then you're kind of like, I hate you, but you're right. Or
but you hate him and respect him all at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's not hate. It's that
you
and I
I'm kinda
probably
being a little
wouldn't get
hyperbolic.
along.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he writes this book, The Obstacle is the Way, where he talks about Stoicism. He talks about Marcus Aurelius. He talks about everything that kind of plays along with that. And it man, I lost my train of thought as we kind of got lost in the author.
Well, Ryan Holiday talks Ryan Trust Me,
Holiday.
I'm Lying. You didn't like what he
No, I really didn't love it, but I did love The Obstacle is the Way, because he just talks about how a lot of times we look to avoid an obstacle,
mm-hmm.
right? But most of the time, like Winston Churchill said, when you're going through hell, keep going. Most of the time, we're going to find the right way to do something by overcoming the obstacle, not by being afraid of it.
Or going around it.
Which
is easier said than done. But yeah, facing that obstacle is the way. Right?
Yeah.
That's the point of the book.
Yeah. Anyway, I love it. And I love, I get inspired by people who are looking to take accountability for their current situation in life, who don't blame other people for things and then try to do better from where they're at. They start from where they're at and then they move forward. And one of my favorite quotes from Nelson Mandela is, I never lose. I win or I learn. Yeah. And I feel like that's the way that I want to face life. I want to win or I want to learn.
Yeah.
I want to keep moving forward, though. And Nelson Mandela, man, that guy had every obstacle stacked against him. And if you ever read his autobiography, he wrote, man, I can't remember what it's called now, but it's his autobiography.
I know the autobiography. I know what you're talking about.
And
I'm sure most everybody else is going to know too.
He goes through a lot of the I shouldn't call it minutia, but he goes through his kind of day-to-day being in jail and different things.
Yeah.
But he talks about what gave him pleasure in life and what inspired him to continue to advocate for doing things better, and how he could get rid of the institutional racism that was taking place in South Africa at the time.
Yeah.
And it's just a phenomenal book to hear his perspective and to hear how he continued to press forward. And just like you're talking about with Abraham Lincoln and with Paulo Coelho, I wrote it down. See, I had to reference that. But Paulo Coelho, all of these other people, they tend to face these phenomenal obstacles, but then they find the way going through the obstacle.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me. I'm trying to think. I don't remember who said it, but they said everything that is created was once an idea in somebody's mind that they couldn't let go of.
Huh.
Everything that is created was once an idea in somebody's mind.
I mean, that's common.
That they couldn't let go.
That's common. As I think I've done like 120 of these or something stories now. There's quite a few, and it is a common theme that somebody has something that they almost like can't, like to a point of obsession,
almost obsessively,
can't
let
get
go
rid
of
it, can't let go of it. They've got this dream or this idea or this product or something, and they cannot just seem to let go of it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I get ticked off when there's a song in my head that I can't get rid of. These guys have some sort of phenomenal way to move the world forward that they can't seem to get past. But it's inspirational to me when you read these stories and you hear about these decisions that people made and how they would keep themselves grounded and moving forward, especially like Marcus Aurelius, right? That guy was literally a deity in his own time, and he would go out and would live like a pauper on the streets so that he could keep himself in tune and grounded
and humble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal when you hear about stuff like that.
It's particularly phenomenal with his story, which, you're talking about Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
So if you haven't read that book, that's a good one, right? But it's so amazing to me when you see somebody who gets, amazing power for that time period, probably the most powerful man in the entire world at that time.
Right.
And he doesn't abuse it, and it doesn't he is still a good person. That's old power. What is it? Ultimate power corrupts ultimately, or something.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that, or,
Yeah.
But how true is that? How many times do you see people that they get power and it really does twist them?
It does,
and they become, for lack of a better term, bad or evil or whatever. But
it's like your dad always says, that money is a great accelerator for better or worse.
Yeah.
If you're a good person without money, you'll be a good person with money. If you're a bad person without money, you'll be a bad person with money. It's an accelerator.
But money will accelerate that. And I think the important part is you got to be working on yourself on a regular basis to be accelerated into the good.
Yeah.
Because if you relax and you don't, human nature, just based on kind of what I have observed, will lead you to, the bad and accelerate the bad.
Oh yeah.
And so
it takes the quickest way for evil to
triumph is good men to do nothing.
Is for good men to do nothing.
Yeah.
And if we pause our progression in life, we'll start going down the backwards elevator. It's like running up an elevator going the wrong direction, right?
Yeah.
We're going to either make progress or we're going to get sucked backwards.
Yep.
So I love it. We have a couple of people on the line that are like, we should start a book club, and that's a great idea. And then here comes Tara. And I said, about getting a song stuck in my head. And so she says, we don't talk about Bruno.
Oh, no. Right? I hate that song because it gets stuck in my head so much. I hear it everywhere I go.
Tara.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tara.
I know now. We don't talk about it.
Yeah, okay. No, you don't have to sing it. I promise. Yeah. Anyway, I love the idea of starting a book club. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something we could do right here on the podcast.
Yeah. Doesn't Oprah have a book club? What does she call it? We could
Oprah's
mock
book club. I don't know.
The J.A.M book club. I don't know. We come up with some funny name.
But how about this? Let's do this for everybody on the line right now. If you are in a place where you can drop a chat or into the comment section right now, tell us the last good book that you've read. And maybe even one thing that you've learned from that book. Because Matt and I, we talk about the books that we're reading all the time.
Yeah.
The Obstacle is the Way, Meditations.
There's another one that I want to read by Seneca. I haven't yet. What is it called though? I downloaded it.
It's on Stoicism as well.
Yeah, it is. It's I don't know. Maybe I can find it real quick. But yeah, what's the last good book you've read? I want to know.
What's the last good book that you've read, and what did you learn from it? I'm gonna start. I'm gonna say that mine was The Obstacle is the Way. I'm in the middle of reading a different book right now, but the last good book that I finished was The Obstacle is the Way. And one of the things that I really took away from it was that we can actually make better decisions if we remove the emotional weight that we attach to them. So we tend to...
Letters of a Stoic.
That's what it is. Letters of a Stoic by Seneca.
Yeah.
Yeah. We tend to attach a lot of emotion to the different decisions that we make in this life. And that's one of the things that I took away from it. We should live our life the same way that we would give advice to a friend. So, for example, if a friend comes to you with a problem and they say, "What do you think I should do?" you don't have the same emotional attachment as your friend does.
Yeah.
And so as you give advice, you're going to give advice that doesn't bear the same emotional weight.
Yeah.
And in consequence, you will probably give them better advice than they themselves would.
Yeah. It took me years to learn this the hard way. That particularly, not even so much, a friend can do it.
Yeah.
But it's even better if you can get somebody who's a complete third party to the situation. They're not involved in your life in any way, and they do
Right.
this professionally. So
Right.
some type of coach, counselor,
Yep.
something like that. But they're going to generally, if they're good, which, you do kind of got to find the good ones, right? There's good, bad, and otherwise of every profession. And so
True that.
you got to find the good ones, but you get a good coach or a good mentor, good counselor, good somebody they're not involved in your life in any way, and they're going to set you straight.
Yeah.
They're going to find those
Yeah.
thinking errors and point them out.
So I love it. Nicholas Hiller put on here that Straight Line Persuasion is the last best book that he's read. That's the one by Jordan Belfort. He's the Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh.
And he says this. He says,
Yeah, I
be
never
a
saw
figure of authority. I'm not recommending the movie.
Okay.
I want that to be very, very
All right.
clear.
All right. Yeah.
I have never watched the movie, but I know that it's got some questionable activity in it, which I'm sure is true to life to what he actually went through.
Now I'm questioning what that activity is.
But he put a quote on here: "Be a figure of authority, sharp as a tack, and enthusiastic as fill in the blank
I don't know.
as heck." I'm not gonna. It's funny because I have no problem saying hell when it comes to like quoting Churchill or being enthusiastic as hell is what he says.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, James. Cancel the podcast. We're done.
That is a great quote though. And that is something that we need to definitely keep in mind. So yeah, do me a favor, drop in your quotes here below, and if I don't know, Matt, let's you and I talk about it offline a little bit and see if we actually want to start a legitimate book club.
It'd be fun.
It would be fun.
I've never been a part of a book club. Well, I mean, but besides the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I've never been a part of a book. I don't know if you call that a book club, though. It's kind of a club, and we read the same book.
I tell you.
So
that you have taught me some phenomenal things from that book.
Yeah, well, life lessons. I think personally, everybody should read that book.
Yeah.
Addict, alcoholic, or otherwise. So.
Right. Each one of us has opportunities to progress and do better. And that's one thing that I've noticed about people that have gone through recovery or that are in recovery or whatever. They have an accountable and very deliberate way of talking where they're not blaming their life on other people.
Well, you have to take accountability.
Right.
So that's kind of part of the deal. So.
Right. I think it's anyway.
You know
what? We'll talk about doing a book club. Maybe we'll do a book club and we'll like.
What do you do in a book club?
Well, everybody reads.
You read the book and then you talk about it. Because I like that. I could do that.
Well, yeah, that's basically all. That's what I think a book club is. I've never really.
Somebody
been part
correct
of
me. I mean, yeah, we're pretty.
Most people do like a book club, like weekly kind of thing. Maybe we could do one over a month where we talk about it like on the first podcast of the month.
Light it up and light up the cameras and talk about it. And,
and then open it up for a conversation in 4 weeks after everybody's read the book or something. I don't know.
All right, I want to hear people's opinions. I want to do it. I think that's fun.
Yeah, let us know what you think. I see that Mr. Hiller's in for it. It looks like Stephanie Williams was in. Alvin sounds like he's in.
Sweet.
So, if you guys
if Alvin's in, I'm in.
Yeah, if you guys are in, let us know, and maybe we'll start with our first book next podcast because it'd be the first Wednesday of the month.
Yeah. All right.
Oh.
Cool. Okay.
Maybe we'll get Bob Snyder to weigh in on this too. Maybe we can include him on the book club.
That would be fun. He went through the obstacles the way as well.
He did. So. He did.
Yeah,
That's cheating if we do that first, though.
Well, yeah.
We got to
do something different.
We got to do something else that we haven't read.
So, yeah.
Maybe we'll do the Letters of a Stoic by Seneca.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Yeah. All right. Well, let us know what you think in the comments. I want to give a huge shout out to Mr. Matt Snyder for preparing the good vibrations every single week and then sharing. That's so amazing, man. Those stories are truly inspirational. I love it. I keep thinking about Roger Bannister too, about him breaking the 4-minute mile.
Yep.
And shout out to Danny Robbins, who's our director of finance here. Chuck Yeager. I want to, Chuck Yeager is a man of inspiration.
Sound barrier.
Broke the sound barrier for the very first time.
He brought it up, and all of us were like, "Who's that?
Who's Chuck Yeager? What are you talking about?"
Yeah. Anyways. Yeah.
Oh,
I now know.
Yes. Now we know who Chuck Yeager
Now we
is.
know.
Never to be forgotten by the Renatus home team.
That's right.
All right. I also want to give a shout out to Mr. James Richens, who has been producing for us today. And I wanted to wish everybody here on the line a very happy and safe Independence Day celebration, 4th of July. That's coming up this Monday. The home team, the home office will be closed. We're actually taking part in a parade right here in Centerville, Utah. So if you want to come and cheer on the Renatus home team, we will be there next Monday morning. But I hope that you guys have a fantastic week, have a great weekend. And remember that the reason why Renatus rocks is because of the people who are associated with it. Renatus rocks.